Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the weekly show where members of Team MagicJank get together and we talk about the latest happenings in Magic. Now, we did have a new set that came out on Arena this past week, so you would think that we'd want to talk about kind of our impressions and meta decks. However, there was an announcement last week that absolutely kind of just shook the whole Magic community, and we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on it. And it's also pretty heavy, so there's a good chance that it's going to be the primary topic we discussed today, and actually, knowing us, probably the only topic that we discussed today. We wanted to give it its due because it's kind of a big deal, and that is the Commander ban announcement. So last Monday there was a ban announcement where 4 new cards have been added to the Commander ban list, and there was reaction. So we're going to dive into that. My name's Graham. I go by Hamhawks42 on the internet, and I'm joined by Carlo, aka C_Favretto_Jr. How are we doing, man?
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Good to be heard. Hope everybody's having a good end or start to the week. Depends when you're listening to this.
Heck yeah. Good stuff. And then we're also joined by Headology Magic, who you might think, wait a minute, is this, you just said this wasn't going to be the limited episode. And yes, I know. But believe it or not, she's actually a really accomplished Commander player as well. If you haven't seen her on, Elder Dragon Hijinks and other shows like that, not to mention if you've ever had a chance to hang out with her at a convention, the Commander decks come out and it's a great time. So I would highly recommend. So Headology, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Accomplished, I don't know about that, but I do love to have some fun slinging cardboard. Like, I just like to see what other people's decks do, and mine, can have some fun too.
One of my fondest memories from I think was it Philly last year? Was one game when I brought my Mutate deck where it absolutely folded, but you had a Maelstrom Wanderer deck that just had one of the most epic pop-offs I've ever witnessed.
Yeah, that was a dumb that's a dumb deck, and it actually uses one of the cards that we're talking about here.
But anyway, I found a lot of fun watching you get excited and trying to keep track of all the triggers and the floating mana, and it was a delight. Just watching, like, my deck did nothing, but the game was a lot of fun. So anyway, when you're playing with the right people, Commander can be fun no matter what happens on the board. Yep. Yeah. So, so for folks who haven't heard, or if you're not familiar exactly with the ban list that we're talking, or the ban announcement that we're talking about, on Monday, the 23rd of September, 2024, 4 cards were announced as banned. We had Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypt, Dockside Extortionist, and Nadu Winged Wisdom. So these were they kind of came out of nowhere. Like the ban announcement kind of took a lot of folks by surprise, and I was curious, kind of, where do you guys want to start with this? Because there are a lot of details from not only like whether or not we agree with the ban decision to begin with, and also just the community reaction and all the implications of this. Headology, do you want to get things started, kind of with
just as a general thing, and I want to hear from Carlo first, obviously. But as a general point, what we say here is going to be, we can have differences in opinion, we can have differences in, feelings about, various aspects of this ban. But the one thing we're all in agreement on is there is no circumstance, none, under which the people who are responsible for the banning, or the people on, which is the CRC, the Commander Rules Committee, or the CAG, the Commander Advisory Group, should ever be targets for your anger, your sadness, etc. That is not acceptable under any circumstances. You may express your opinions about these bans, but you may not attack the people responsible for them. Even 100%. If you think they're responsible, even if they aren't actually responsible, which is actually what happened in some of these.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
People targeted people who were not at all responsible for the bans, but even if they had been, still unacceptable.
100%. I think yes.
Said,
yeah. Yes.
Whether we agree or disagree, not okay.
Yeah, and the feelings
that's what we will not be doing.
Yeah, those feelings that we have, if you were upset about this, is totally fair. But I think it's starting off with just condemning, just malicious outrage, like targeted at people. Yeah, that's.
We will all have opinions on this. We will all have strong opinions on this.
Oh,
And you can
absolutely.
feel sad, you can feel angry. That's all right, but you may not externalize it to these human beings.
Yes. Attacking folks is not unacceptable. And you're welcome to even externalize your frustration just in general to the world. Like social media and everything is an outlet to do that. You are allowed to share those feelings.
Yes, you
But
may
don't
have
attack
those
people.
feelings, you may share those feelings,
Yeah,
but
totally.
you may not target people with them.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's baseline.
Carlo,
So
I think, has a really, really important point
Yes.
to share with us about the impact of these bans that I think is really, key.
Yeah. So, like many of you, obviously I got to see the ban announcement when I got to see it on the Monday, and I was shocked. But my primary shock wasn't to, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to play with these cards anymore. My shock was what about the value of these cards? And what impact does that have not only for your personal collection, but also for the local game stores that probably have a stock of tons of these cards, whether you have a brick and mortar store or you're just online or you're a vendor that goes to like Command Fest, Magicons, where you're always buying cards. Like these were cards that were always in demand and they weren't cheap. So not just cheap for, those LGSs or vendors to buy, but not cheap to then sell them, right? And they were very expensive. And I think, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever seen a ban happen in Magic's history that took that much value, dollar value, off of the market worldwide. And not just for personal collections, but for the LGSs, for the retailers who realistically, they make a lot of money selling Magic singles, right? They don't make a ton of money selling booster boxes and booster packs, right? They sell those products because they have to keep the card flow going, right? You're lucky if your LGS is making like $20, $30 off of a sealed booster box being sold, right? They're making their money off of buying, selling singles and other products, right? So the amount of money that would have been invested into cards like that players were buying and selling a lot of, is huge. And it's those businesses that would suffer that value loss, right? If they bought a Mana Crypt, which before the ban, you could get like a double Masters one for say, like about $175 or something like this. Average value looking at TCG player sales, right? Let's say an LGS was buying Mana Crypts for like $100, right? Or $110 or something like that. Because it was a higher ticket item, they could pay more for those items. They know that they would sell and they would probably flip in a good amount of time. Mana Crypt's value now is less than $100. So you're talking about a $75 or more price loss for this particular version of Mana Crypt.
Right. Because now all of a sudden, I mean, Mana Crypt's a really interesting case because at this point, the only place where you can play this is in Vintage, and even there, it's restricted. Like, if you have a Vintage cube or something, okay, cool, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But it's also really important to note that these stores, as Carlo pointed out, but these stores, they will buy them because they know they will sell.
Yeah.
He said they know they'll flip, but that's really important because they also know that there's a high demand for them.
Yep.
So these will have been on a buy list for every store. These will have been something that they did expend money on because they know they need to have them in stock if somebody wanders into the store and wants to buy one. That's likely because they have a commander deck, and this is a staple for more powerful commander decks.
Yep.
So even casual, this is a staple for more powerful commander decks, even the more casual ones. So
now Mana Crypt in particular has many a printing now, right? If we remember, we had during it was Kaladesh or Aether Revolt, we had the masterpiece versions. Remember when you could get like a gold super foil version of these cards and they were worth infinite money? It was the first like lottery ticket sort of booster pack that you could buy, as they would call that back in the day, because you could get this out of a regular booster pack there was no collector packs then. You would just buy a booster pack of the set and you pulled the super foil Mana Crypt or Aether Vial or whatever is your masterpiece of choice. But
And it
this
was like
card,
one in like 20 boxes or something like that, right? Like it was
yeah,
very
super
rare.
rare.
Yeah.
And, it helped sell the set, right? That you can get these masterpiece products. So I think at one point this Mana Crypt was up to like almost $1,000 in value, let's say.
It was more than, I think it was like 1,200 at one
1,200,
point.
yeah.
I believe it. Yeah.
And, and yes, you can argue you don't need this printing to play in your deck. That's totally valid.
Sure.
But for the EDH players who love to bling and foil out their decks, I mean, they might have had this $1,000 plus Mana Crypt in their deck, which is super fine. And even this card, I think, took a hit by like $400 or so post ban on TCG Player. Just taking a look at those sales. So, and that's double a regular Mana Crypt in terms of actual value. And imagine the LGS or vendor that bought a masterpiece for, let's say, they bought it for like $800 if it was worth $1,000 to $1,100, and now that value has tanked also, right?
Yeah, by at least $200 to $300. Yeah.
Yeah, that hurts.
Yeah. So obviously, the vendors who are or LGSs that are more, well off are larger retailers. They carry a lot of stock, suffer a lot more, based on the amount of stock that they have in. But your mom and pop LGS that might have had, let's say, 10 to 15 Mana Crypts in stock are now stuck with useless cards that they really can't sell. Maybe if you're a vintage player and you didn't have Mana Crypt and you need it for your deck now's the time to buy on the dip, right? Because now it's low enough for you to maybe want to purchase this product. But the majority of folks are just eating the loss. And that's just me talking about Mana Crypt. I'm not going to touch Nadu because that was already a $2 card.
Right.
Or less, right?
Yeah, and Mana Crypt's also an interesting one. We're still talking Mana Crypt because it was the big premiere showcase special guest in Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Which
was just a couple sets ago.
Yeah, it was not that long ago. And I think at this point it was a calendar year. I think even less than a calendar year as of this recording. But it's kind of nuts because it was one of the big chase elements of that set, and this particular printing is nowhere near as valuable as some of the other ones, but still the fact that they flooded the market, or not flooded, but they injected more into the market because the demand was so high.
And not only was the big chase card for collector packs, they literally put this card in different Cosmium foil versions in collector packs to sell collector packs. But they also allowed you to get non-foil versions out of regular set boosters at the time, right? So you're still buying set boosters to try to get a non-foil $100 card, which is great. It's great to sell the products. But imagine that caused collector boosters of Lost Caverns Ixalan be sold out everywhere. I still can't find them at LGSs anywhere.
Wow.
Right? Like, it's been sold out because people are just buying them to try to get the Mana Crypts. And granted, I've only had one deck that I've ever played Mana Crypt in. That is my Planeswalker deck that y'all know. And, I happened to get one of these cool little foil rainbow Mana Crypts. And, for me, it's, I like to think that, this isn't really a loss for me because I got it out of a booster pack. You know what I mean? But for your average Commander player that maybe sold a lot of their cards that they weren't playing with to try to get store credit to then buy a Mana Crypt that now they can't play is definitely a monetary loss to your common casual Commander player, right? So yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on Mana Crypt.
So, your feelings on the ban as a whole, both of you.
Yeah.
On the ban of all the cards?
Yeah, so the 4 cards that got banned, just kind of quick high level.
Your general feeling on each of them separately or all as a whole, whatever you prefer.
So like I said, I didn't really care about Nadu. That's my personal feeling, because not because of its value, but I've never played with this card, so I really don't have an opinion on this. I understand it was problematic. Maybe for some folks who are playing higher power decks, I guess.
I had it in one deck. I had it in a single deck that couldn't abuse it, and it was fine, I guess. It was a
Yeah.
Brokos Mutate deck with all creatures. I had a Numoric Companion. So it
Yeah.
was kind of a replacement for Season of Growth in that particular deck.
Yeah.
But even then, I had turns where I was able to like cast multiple things because it ramped me when it really shouldn't have. You
Yeah.
know, so this is one of those where it's like good riddance. That thing was absurd. Like
Yeah.
even trying to play it in the most fair way possible, where I'm not trying to abuse it, I felt like I was abusing it. Like the card's problematic. So, as far as Nadu's concerned, I think it was good to just bite the bullet, get it gone, because it was not. It's not healthy for any format ever.
The reasoning that the rules committee gave seemed very valid to me. That it led to a lot of non-interactive turns that were very long.
Yes,
I never played it myself, but I imagined from all of the reasons it was banned in other formats, same thing. So I don't. It's not a hit to anybody's wallet, which is nice for local game stores. I care more. So here's the thing: I care more about local game stores wallets getting hit than I care about individuals getting
100%.
hit, because in Magic the Gathering, the economy has always been volatile. It always has. You have to make an understanding. An informed decision on what you're going to invest in, with the understanding that this is an investment and investments can fail, and that that's your speculation, right? Some of these things, right? You understand that the meta and new printings will possibly make things go not your way. And so it is really important to understand that the market has always been volatile. That said, you can still get upset and angry that they banned a card that you feel was a stable and fair investment of your own. So you thought it was going to be stable for a long time. You thought it was going to be a staple of the format, and that it would therefore be somewhat resistant to any sorts of bans or things like that. And especially if nobody had been making noise about how it was problematic, you might have felt very betrayed by this decision. And I understand that. And I think it's very valid to be upset about that. I think that I'm more like, yes, my collection, I have quite a few mana crypts, and I have quite a few jeweled lotuses. And by that I mean I think I have 4 jeweled lotuses, and I think I have 2 book promos, one masterpiece, and maybe 3 regular mana crypts. That's a lot of money. That I thought was a good, stable investment. How, even though they were being reprinted, I knew they were being reprinted. Jeweled Lotus has been reprinted. Mana Crypt's been reprinted a lot, but because they were such staples of the format and people would always want to acquire them for their more powerful decks, I thought that they were going to maintain their value. But I did understand the risk I was taking. I understood that no card is really safe. Even the reserve list, I'm still worried about, because so many people want it unreserved. And I will accept that if it happens. That is a risk I took. It is a calculated risk, and I thought it was a better risk than it turned out to be for some of these. But it is still my decision and my finances. Now, I can get upset, I can be angry, I can say I disagree with the choice, and I will talk about that more later. But I did want to talk about why I'm upset for the local game stores. I feel like this is a huge betrayal of the local game stores, because again, Magic has been pushing Commander. WotC has been pushing Commander, and if the stores cannot rely on some of the cards that Magic is pushing most highly, if that trust erodes, then you're going to have a difficult situation, not only for the game stores, but for the players who come into the game stores expecting to be able to play and buy stuff. If the store is just too scared to buy the high ticket items, they won't be in stock. People will come in and be like, oh, that's not in stock, I'm going to shop online.
Mm-hmm.
And your local game stores are going to lose valuable customers and valuable transactions. It's just that worries me.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I'm all of the I'm agreeing with everything I'm hearing so far. To go back to the question of just like yay or nay on the bans as a whole,
Yeah,
it's funny because no, you're fine. It's like these. I know we all have a lot of thoughts, and there's a ton of ground to cover, so we're gonna be a little all over the place, and that's okay. As far as the high level goes, from my perspective, as a casual player who really enjoys innovation and creative deck building in general, I'm shockingly pro ban in general. I think it's generally helpful to help shore up the environment, and I personally think that these 4 cards no longer being available at casual tables is going to make those casual tables more fun. So if I had to say yay or nay, I am yay on the bans, which I know in the context talking about how many dollars have now been stripped away from mom and pop businesses. It sounds like I'm being anti-small business, but that's not actually what I'm trying to say.
No one's suggesting that agreeing with the so here's the thing. Yeah. No one's suggesting that being in favor of the bans means you are against small businesses.
No.
We are be upset about the impact on the small businesses, which I'm sure you are, which you've just said
100%. And I believe that we should address that.
The bans, because I'm actually in favor of the bans as well. Those just because I have those cards, the cards that I listed that I actually own, only 4 decks have mana crypts out of my like 70 decks, and only 2 decks have Jeweled Lotus. Okay. So I actually have way more than I run because I opened them in packs. Not the special mana crypt I traded for, but
but it's not that you don't have decks to put them in. Yeah.
So I actually don't run them. I prefer the casual formats. I prefer longer games. I don't like shuffling up 100 cards 1 minute later after I already shuffled them.
And that's the bottom line with these fast mana pieces. I mean, that's what we're talking about. The 3 cards. I mean, Nadu's kind of it kind of breaks the pattern, but
we already talked about Nadu,
when we're talking about Jewel Lotus, when we're talking about Mana Crypt, and when we're talking about Dockside Extortionist, they produce an amount of mana that is just like you can't keep up with it. And with all of these being available simultaneously, decks can hit multiples of them. Like I know I have seen, Lotus Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, here's my commander, go. It's like, well, like what are we supposed to do with that? And it gets out of hand. And Dockside is actually one of the, so it's funny, I don't own most of these pieces because I don't seek them out. I don't enjoy the games where my opponents play these kinds of cards, and so I personally don't play them. I managed to get my hands on the pre-con that Dockside Extortionist originally came in, and so I happen to own 1 copy of Dockside Extortionist. I have run it before, and for me, personally, I felt bad playing it. Being able to put a creature on board and literally go up mana. Like, I got paid back because I did this. Like, it felt like I was using some kind of cheat code. Like, I was turning on infinite ammo or something. Like, it didn't feel fair. And I didn't enjoy the vibe at the table the moment it dropped. Like, and it's not even that the people I was with were being salty and uncomfortable about it, but I could tell that, like, this added an element to this game that is going against the casual fun vibe that we're trying to get here. And so, like, I think I only actually resolved it once and was like, yep, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. And I took it out because it's absurd. Like, this card is like busted. And so as far as a casual player is concerned, I think fast mana in general is detrimental to a casual game. But here's where I'm wondering how much, I know everybody is, I don't know, this isn't a hot take, but like, I wonder, should casual and CEDH have separate lists?
So Lua,
because I can't speak for that.
Comedian, Lua and Comedian are actually investigating creating a different sort of rules committee / advisory group for CEDH, so that it could have a separate ban list because Mana Crypt, etc. Those are so much a part of that particular format. They're huge staples of that format. They cannot. A
Yeah,
lot of stuff can't function without them in that particular format.
and
Um,
that's the majority of the demand right now, isn't it? Or I would
exactly.
imagine, right?
And
So
well, I mean, some casuals still lug it for like powers,
sure,
8,
Yeah.
9 decks.
yeah,
There's the, without being CEDH, which is a completely different thing. Sometimes power
Yeah.
8, 9 decks can beat CEDH decks because they're built around a certain dynamic
Mhm.
within those games. But one of the things that we should just really look at really quickly is the
yeah,
Dockside Extortionist was better because of those 2 cards being in the format.
Yes.
That's just
yes,
really
Yes.
interesting to me. I don't know
Hmm.
whether, because the people who are playing Dockside were playing it against those decks.
right,
Um, so I just wanted to point out that that is an interaction that's interesting. If you ban Mana Crypt, you ban Jeweled Lotus, Dockside Extortionist actually gets a tiny bit weaker. Because the decks that it's played in are often more competitive,
Mhm.
and then you have that. Now, that's not to say that like Soul Ring and Signets don't still exist, or other sort
yeah,
of Arcane Signet and all the others don't
Yeah.
exist, and Talisman and so on and so forth. So Dockside is still very, very powerful, but it's
Mhm.
worth looking at what it does to Dockside to ban these 2 fast mana artifacts.
Yeah.
So it's worth looking at that to talk about those in the bans. It's also worth looking at to talk about green fast mana.
mm,
When you think about this, if you're removing 2 of the more powerful artifact fast mana, green actually becomes very, very powerful in terms of getting a couple lands per turn into play, potentially, right?
Yep.
So, and those are things that people run less destruction against, right? There is artifact
mhm,
destruction. There is, but there's fewer land destruction spells because
very
it's
true.
really painful to decks that aren't green. Even the
Hmm.
greens, because green can, generate land again pretty quickly. The rest of the decks can't. And so mana destruction is one of the like most painful things you can do in Magic.
Yeah.
Right.
And so one wonders what this ban does also to green fast mana, things like Farseek and 3 Visits and Nature's Lore and all those others,
Hmm.
that and Cultivate and Kodama's Reach and
Sure.
there's so many. There are so many, but it's just interesting to note what things will shift. There's a lot of implications for this that we don't really that I haven't really explored fully yet, and that I think the community hasn't explored fully yet because of the
Yeah.
the difficulty of putting numbers to EDH, especially
Hmm.
casual EDH. Now,
Right.
like you said, we all kind of appreciate the fact that that these cards are often used to create situations and games that we don't appreciate. Um, uh, Oftentimes because one person gets them early and the rest of the table has to deal with that.
Yeah.
That does lead to sort of an arch enemy situation, which sometimes can mitigate that issue.
Mhm.
But if everybody's playing a similar power level deck, one assumes that they also have those types of cards in their deck or ways
Hmm.
to deal with what they produce. That said, oftentimes in a casual commander format, the mid game cards have gotten so much stronger over the years. They've just power crept them.
Mhm.
And so
Yes.
one of the reasons the rules committee gave itself, and you can find this online, we have a link for you. The rules
Hmm.
committee gives its full justifications for making these bans. It also responds to several of the comments that we're going to go over from various people. It does respond to the issues of, why ban an expensive card. They say that they cannot, for example, they can't really take that into account. What they are looking for and we're looking at is the health of the format. And one of the things that they see as the health of the format is interactive games. And so they feel, and you can see from their reasoning, that these do not lead to interactive games. And I have some problems with that. There are some times where I feel like Jeweled Lotus, for example, I have a chainer deck, the old chainer,
Mhm.
um, Dementia Master, I think it is, or something like
Yeah.
that. No, no, Nightmare, somebody.
The mono
Never
black
had
one.
it.
3 and 2 black. Yeah, 3 and 2 black. It's not
Or
the
the
red
3D.
black one. It's 3 and
Oh,
2
that is
black.
the Dimension
It is
Master.
Dementia
Yeah.
Master. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
Now it's an old card you're seeing in reprint from Commander Legends. it's an old card, and it is slow. It is very slow if you use it as your commander.
Yeah, because
And
it's
Jeweled
it's a
Lotus was one of the ways that I made this commander work to some degree. Even in the sort of accelerated stuff these days, playing this against a precon these days is a fairly even match, even with Jeweled Lotus. So it is it's an interesting thing. There are some commanders that are older commanders that are going to be completely outclassed these days by even precons without a little bit of fast mana.
yeah,
And
for anybody who's
so it's worth considering. Sorry, you were saying.
yeah, for anybody who's not familiar with Chainer Dementia Master, it is a 5 mana 3/3 that says all nightmares get +1/+1, and there's an activated ability, black, 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 pay 3 life. Put target creature card from a graveyard into play under your control. That creature is black. It is a nightmare in addition to its other creature types. And then when Chainer leaves the battlefield, remove all nightmares from the game. You'll notice at no point in there did I say draw a card or gain life or put extra lands onto the battlefield or any of those things that we associate with commanders nowadays.
Do you mean that Chainer Dementia Master is a fair Magic card?
This was a fair Magic card 20 years ago. Now it is a genuinely bad Magic card, but
so
it's fun. And
it's so easy to kill. It's so it's expensive. Like so it's just a gimmick for me. I love it to death. But the fact that Jeweled Lotus was in the deck meant I sometimes had faster starts, and maybe I could get something from someone's graveyard once before it died.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was a really like casual deck. It was and it still is. It's still on. You can see the list. I'm gonna have to figure out something to replace the Jeweled Lotus, but it was for some of those. It's really really important. So so yeah, there's just a lot of things that you want to consider with these bans. Is that sometimes there's the things that you're seeing when these things are abused, the crazy games where somebody gets nuts draw and so on and so forth. I think there's a lot of the times people forget that it's a 100 card singleton format. There are going to be times when my power level 7 deck or 5 deck is suddenly going to just go off. Yeah, because it gets the cards that it needs to perfectly and nobody has a response. That's just going to happen on occasion. Now, the rules committee has seen far more commander than I have and far more high level commander than I have. And if they say this is the right thing to do for the format, I believe them. I think that they have far more data at their disposal than I do. And they have far more of the ear of the community than I do. So they're listening to people and making these decisions based on that. But what I didn't understand was why the CAG, the Commander Advisory Group, wasn't brought into the loop on this one, because they were all blindsided by this as well. Absolutely blindsided by this. And I have proof of that in the fact that, well, number one, people in the CAG resigned in response. We had what's his name?
Josh Lee Kwai.
Sorry, I'm forgetting his name.
Yeah, Josh Lee Kwai actually
Josh
made.
Lee Kwai, sorry, we had Josh Lee Kwai resign from the Commander Committee. We also had one, another resign from the Commander Committee. And
these are just the public ones that people who've commented. These
who knows? These are the people who have commented on their resignation.
Yeah.
These are who have gone public with it. And we know that Rebel Sun, Rebel Lily on Twitter, she has said that that she was blindsided, right? And so we have several statements from her on this, including, right, Magic cards shouldn't be printed and priced in such a way where a ban causes this much loss in value from a player's collection. So now notice she's not talking about the ban itself. She's talking about the printed and priced. So this is a WotC thing. WotC is playing a role in this, and she's pointing that out. And it is really important to look at this. So a lot of people are focusing only on the responsibility of the Commander Rules Committee and the CAG. but you should pay attention to exactly what role WotC played in this, right? She continues, we keep printing more and more cards that keep pushing the envelope for power and efficiency, making premium priced patch update Horizon sets to change entire formats around, and also expect players to invest and trust their value when the cards are made to push the line. I don't think Dockside should ever have been $100, nor should Jeweled Lotus. And then a lovely comment here that I absolutely adore. The fact that Nadu was made for Commander, but ruined half a modern season, then banned in Commander, is such a comical embarrassment. I don't even know where to begin. So WotC is playing a role in this. WotC is printing cards that should be staples because they're so damn powerful. Because they're so damn powerful, they get that price tag, and then WotC needs to match that power by printing even more powerful cards. So power creep is a thing, of course, but this is a level that is not the norm. Should I say?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times when they're printing directly for Commander, like Nadu, when the designer of them was like, I just didn't see this interaction with 0 mana targeting effects, which was just really hilarious. They were not testing it.
Shuko. No love.
Yeah, I mean, so it was just amazing, and I just wanted to point out a similar. So this isn't just Rebel's, a wonderful person and has wonderful views, but Kai Buddha, one of the greatest Magic players ever of all time, also echoed this sentiment. Says hardly so the comment was, I think what a lot of people don't get about the Commander banning is that whether or not they were good in a general gameplay sense, they were horrific at a product level. Tons of money wiped off the board on chase cards WotC used to sell sets. Erodes customer confidence, which we did talk about that. But Kai Buddha points out, hardly the problem of the Commander Rules Committee. That's WotC printing crazy good chase mythics to milk players. And then that starts the power creep as they have to top those to sell the next cards, etc.
Yeah.
You can make the same argument for modern Nadu. People spent money, keep it legal. No thanks. So this is a really good set of points made by both of them and echoed by a lot of people. There's the role that, the bannings, the people who are in charge of keeping a format fun and safeguarding its integrity, right? They are doing their level best, but they are fighting against forces that people aren't really considering here, which is WotC trying to sell sets that wouldn't necessarily sell as well otherwise. Right? Trying to print, chase cards for Commander, right? Which is its most popular format, etc. So there's so many important points here. I'm quoting these people. These are public statements they have made. Again, no attacking anybody for what they believe here. They are not attacking anybody themselves. You should do the same. But these are really, really important things to consider where these market forces are coming from and what these people have to contend with in trying to safeguard their format.
Yeah, and I think just 2 points on the same line. We'd already talked about Mana Crypt, right? And then printing it multiple times in a couple reprinted sets, then with Lost Caverns of Ixalan collector boosters and set boosters. Jeweled Lotus, first of all, the Commander Masters set was absurdly expensive for Commander players to buy sealed product, and they marketed Jeweled Lotus as the prize card that you want to open up out of the packs.
Absolutely.
Right? Literally, the collector booster art of Commander Masters is a different art Jeweled Lotus on the front.
Yes.
They sold wall scrolls with Jeweled Lotus on it at LGS's with the Commander Masters logo and everything like this. These were selling for $60 a pack on average at LGS's, which basically was hit Jeweled Lotus or bust.
Yeah.
So now, speaking to the LGS perspective, we have some LGSs that weren't able to sell Commander Masters because of the high price tag. Now they definitely ain't selling Commander Masters sealed product because the card you want to open, now you can't play with. And Jeweled Lotus specifically made for Commander. It's not playable in any other format, right? So, Jeweled Lotus, I think before the ban, its average price was $90, right? Something like that. that you could buy a regular copy. That's not talking about this cool textured copy, which honestly doesn't matter if you got it anymore, right? Because you can't play it. It's wild. It's wild because now I think you could pick up a copy for like $40, and that's not even touching on the fact that the artist for Jeweled Lotus, who was
we
like,
have the post. I pulled the post up.
Who was like,
Elena Danner, she commented, this is a perspective that I don't know that a lot of people are aware of, but the artists on cards that are really, really iconic, they when their card gets banned, and again, this is just something that happens in Magic, so we can feel bad for artists on previous cards that were banned, et cetera, and so forth. This is not necessarily something that artists can rely on, but she's devastated by this. She says, I am truly gutted that Jeweled Lotus was banned by the at MTG Commander, which is the rules committee. I have met literally thousands of players who love this card and who truly treasure it in their EDH deck. It's unfair to do it after 4 years, and now it's unplayable anywhere.
Yeah.
So the impact on the artists is very big. She actually, because of this, right? This was probably one of her major selling artworks. She could sell these prints at shows and cons and so on and so forth, and just in general on her website. And now it is something that is a huge source of controversy, and B, just not playable, not something that newer players who are going to get into the game are going to get because they know it's banned. And so they won't have the opportunity to get super excited about the artwork and go look up the artist and go buy her prints. So it is really important, even though I know it's important that artists not rely on their card always being legal. It's really important to consider the impact on people.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
100%.
On that same line, something that's been talked about in LGSs. I know this can't just be at my LGS, but like to get Magic players just back involved in other formats takes incentivization, right? Yes. So like to get players to show up, for example, to play Standard at your LGS, Wizards is doing a couple different things. One, they do Standard Showdown. That gives you promo packs that also give you arena codes, so you link the in-store paper play to arena. Then they also give you, right now we're doing the Cowboy Bebop promos. I just went to Standard Showdown today. It's a Disdainful Stroke with Oko on it from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, but in the Cowboy Bebop art, which is pretty sweet. That's great incentivization, get people in the store. WotC was doing things where players could win big cards at your LGS. I think the recent one was like Resplendent Angel from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, the special art, to where you went and you won, you could get that.
And if you're wondering how big are these cards, if you actually, for folks on the video feed, if you're not watching this on the YouTube channel, you can watch it on the YouTube channel, MagicJank, over there. But if you actually look directly behind Carlo, you might think, oh, is that a poster? No, that's a card. Okay. That's a Galta, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this is a Galta Primal. Yeah. And I mention this because for a long time, LGSs have been talking about, why doesn't Wizards just do like prize cards to incentivize folks to come back to in-store play? So why can't we do like, I don't know, a couple major tournaments a year where WotC gives out at that point in time, we were talking about Mana Crypt because first of all, more players wanted access to Mana Crypt. So why can't there just be special in-store events that if you win, you come, you pay $10 to play, and you win a Mana Crypt at the end of it, right? That would be a nice little prize card to give somebody. And they kind of did this in the phase of store championships, right? Having like 2 certain cards that are, a common, a rare, and then your prize card. Some of them have been absolute garbage, like Vengevine. But most recently, they did a textless Urza Saga that was worth a bunch of money. Right? Because Urza Saga is played in a bunch of formats. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't it just get restricted in Vintage, right? To like 1 per deck rather than being able to play 4. But this is what I mean. Like cards like this are good prize cards that you want in stores. And the reason I mention that now is specifically because of Urza Saga, cards that are being affected by restricted lists and that might have a potential of getting banned because it's too strong of a card, allegedly. When this happens, if it gets banned in any particular format, the price of this card goes down. And so, how many times are we going to print cards that are like this as prize cards with potential of getting banned that people are going to lose value off of? And then what is the incentivization for people to come out to the store and participate in events to potentially play for a card that could in the future get banned, right? Because it's too strong or something like that.
So,
and this is all speculation, right? I understand I'm speculating a whole lot here, but I would hope that we're taking like certain, thoughts and ideas into mind before we decide, hey, we're going to print these cards for players to get access to, or to be as the prize cards that just lose the value over time, because players are playing for the value,
I think sometimes players are playing for the value. Sometimes they're playing for the fun of it, of course.
Yeah.
But and if you're winning it, it feels less of a loss if it's not going to be. But if you spent a lot of time preparing for that event and then you resolve for this thing, I can see the disillusionment if the card becomes not worth anything. That said, so I definitely agree that the WotC needs to consider what it does before it prints, and it's doing that a lot less now that it's pushing out the sets like that. And you can see that with the Nadu, with the person who designed Nadu really admitting did not try this out. Did not play test this enough. It was so mind-blowing that they had no idea what was going out the door with that card. And if WotC would slow down a little bit, as the entire community has been requesting, slow down a little bit, make a little bit more informed decisions about its cards, right? Play test them a little bit more, make sure that it knows what impact as much as possible, knows what impact it's going to have, those cards are going to have. And takes down the power creep a little bit, because again, if you're printing a set every few months, right, the power creep is going to be obviously slower than if you want to get a person excited about a set every 2 months. And so like even 3 or 4 versus 2 is a huge difference, and they're coming out with something every freaking month, it feels like. You're the spoilers for Duskmourn took the spoilers for Bloomburrow, which was the set before it. It's the standard set before it. And so the thing is, if you are doing power creep that fast, you are going to make errors like this. You're going to do more of this, and this is going to erode confidence, like you said. I understand that there's some times where you can't predict these sorts of things. There's a lot of cards in Magic. Somebody can find a way to break it that you didn't think of. But the more playtesting you have, the more likely you are to avoid that issue. And so I think it was just really, really, I have a post about the Nadu thing. It was related to a post. They had they had a common blue counterspell, I think it was, that literally had it apostrophe S when it meant the possessive. Now that's grammatically, that's not a huge deal. We still understand what it meant to say. It's improper grammar, and so I'm not pissed off about the grammar. What I'm pissed off about is the level of inattention to detail that represents as far as pushing out cards really quickly.
It's the normal. It was from Phyrexia, all we want, bring the ending.
Yes.
Yeah. So the corrupted line, counter that spell if its IT apostrophe S controller has 3 or more points.
It's control. It is controller, right?
Which we know that's not. Yeah, we know it's not correct, but at the same time, like, I played this card plenty before anyone pointed that out, and I didn't even realize it. Because we know what it means.
So to me, what's dangerous there isn't, like I said, isn't the grammatical error itself. Although I am an English teacher and it hurts. What hurts worse is the idea that Wizards is pushing out cards so fast that it doesn't even bother to read them. So
did QA
fully
read this?
or try to see how it's interacting with the rest of the format, like Nadu, because we have tweets from its creator illustrating exactly how little thought was put into that process. He's like, I don't even think the playtesters saw it go out the door in its final form. I don't think anybody played with it before it went out. It had one more change before it went out, and then it was this card, and it's okay.
And in the interest, I mean, if we're talking about quality control in general, there was a secret layer drop where they printed Circular Logic. I think it was last year.
Yeah.
And they said it was a sorcery.
The type is sorcery. They printed a sorcery counterspell.
Good job.
Which,
Good job, Wizards.
you know,
It's an
like
unplayable
that's
counterspell.
yeah, it's a joke. I
And
remember
that's a special
people making
set.
jokes about being as useful as a sorcery speed counterspell. And this, and in top of that,
And a
the
premium price
type line.
product.
Yeah, this is one of the premium chase cards, and it's a reprint of an existing card
Right.
that is an instant. So like the Oracle text is instant, so presumably I can still play this as an instant, but the quality control. How did you miss that? And in this particular frame, the type line is huge. So it's like like front and center. Like,
how do you miss this? Yeah, exactly.
How?
So all of this is to say, again, the CRC and the CAG can't be too responsible for what Wizards is doing. What they're trying to do is mitigate the problems that Wizards is causing. And so again, they're trying to protect a format. They're trying to work in your best interests as a casual Commander player. And they're still trying to work within your best interest as a general Commander player if you play both CEDH and EDH. They want you to, I think they are trying to make sure that the general experience is good for the majority of players. It is still a minority who play CEDH, and it is still a minority who play the super powerful decks. Now that said, one of the things that people objected to that talked about was Rule 0.
Yes.
And Rule 0 in Commander is the idea that when you sit down at a table, you have a discussion about what your deck is, how powerful it is, and within that, how powerful it is, you have discussions about whether it uses fast mana, right? What its plan is for the deck, right? Like what the deck plans to do, and how quickly it usually does it. And so whether it can have explosions and so on and so forth, etc. You know, does it use land destruction? Does it use, you know, etc. So, the idea is that if you sit down at a table and they don't want to play against that deck, then you choose another deck or you choose another table. And so a lot of the time, you know, when I would play my Chainer deck, I'd say, look, this uses Jeweled Lotus, but the deck is still not going to go quickly and it's still going to be pretty jank. So as in MagicJank, where you can get all your supplies for those jank decks you build.
Your sauciest builds.
So yes. So that's the thing is, and actually I have a quote from Rebel here that I remember so this is what we were talking about. She echoes here. She says, I also don't agree with the Jeweled Lotus ban personally. While I understand JL leads to broken starts that are exacerbated by the latest commanders that are doing more and come with protection in the form of unique ward effects, Jeweled Lotus was also the lifeline for a lot of suboptimal commanders that are outclassed by new legends. So that's I thought that was a really well phrased. I think we had already pointed that out, but I thought it was a really important point.
Yeah,
so, especially if you're playing with like a if you were playing like a multicolored commander, Jewel Lotus is not that great for you, right? Whereas, but except
for Niv Mizzet, where your commander required 3 blue, right?
Oh,
that was
sure,
the exception.
yeah.
And so Niv Mizzet has been nerfed and so nearly entirely by the because it was really reliant on that Jeweled Lotus.
I'm a Niv Mizzet enjoyer, I have to say. But you know, like it allows like your older like monocolored legends to actually be playable. I mean, it is true. I mean, taking a look and I'm a Magic player with just cards on my desks. Valgavoth Horror of Souls from the new Rakdos Precon, okay, has flying, ward, pay 2 life, plus an additional ability, plus it's a 4/4 for 4 mana. Playing this on turn 2 isn't necessary. You can with Jeweled Lotus, right? And it allows that card to be broken. But playing a card like
Chainer. On turn
Chainer on turn 2, 3/3 all my nightmares get +1/+1.
But nobody has any creatures in their graveyard by that point is the fun part.
Right.
Like you're not going to do stupid things with that on turn 2.
No, that's it's like here, let me set up my nightmare jam.
Yeah, okay, I have a 3/3 on the board. Fear me.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
please don't board wipe me.
Okay, either. Lightning bolt. Like lightning bolt. Now it costs 7. Have fun.
And the Rule 0 stuff was meant to stop this, right? This was it was to be like, okay, sit down at the table. Here's what my deck does. Here's what the power level is. Do you want to play against this? And at least you know what it's going to do. even if you're like, okay, yeah, I'll play against it, you know what it's going to do, so you know what to look for.
Yeah.
And I understand that Rule Zero. So the RC did, the Rules Committee, the CRC did in fact address this on that link that we put up, the September 2024 Commander banning FAQ, right? They said they did address that. Let's see, they did the thing. They did address that they felt that the Rule Zero discussion wasn't doing enough to stop this from happening, from stops the crazy decks from doing the new commanders and the new legends at turn 2 and just going off and making games non-games for people. They did say that. Now again, they've had more experience than I have, so we do have to take that into account. I think it's really important that they did consider this, that they felt that Rule Zero wasn't enough to deal with this. That people would and I think that's an interesting point to me, because I think that that's a failure of the people who are doing the Rule Zero, not a failure of the cards necessarily. Because it seemed like they were saying that people would misrepresent what their deck could do.
Right.
As opposed to, these cards really being the problem, so to speak.
And I've witnessed that though. I've been in a number of pods where people misrepresented the deck.
Yeah.
I don't believe they were doing it maliciously. I think they genuinely didn't know how much those cards just supercharged their decks.
How much those cards supercharge their deck, or how much, sometimes they'll just have a nutty draw. Like, again, like I said, any deck can have an explosive nutty draw there. But if they didn't understand the value of those cards in the deck and how they power crept the deck, then I can see that being an issue. But that's an issue of their knowledge of their deck, and they can be informed after that game, as opposed to the other way here. So I have a slight, I understand the Rules Committee says they considered this. Like I said, I acknowledge their greater experience. I have misgivings about that, just because, again, I think that this requires people to Rule Zero poorly. But again, it's something to consider.
I would say, and listen, I read over that document and everything like this, and I would say probably the Rule Zero thing might be the only thing I think I disagree with. And just from me playing casual Commander, right? So I don't play CEDH. There's nothing wrong with CEDH. Don't take my opinion on that or statement to be that. But I always sit down. Doesn't matter what event I'm at. If I'm just out, just like walking around looking for a casual Commander game, that's the first thing that happens. Hello, how are you? Thanks for letting me join the game. What level decks are we playing? And if so, we need to be clear about it. And I've guessed it on a couple of the Commander streams from a lot of our friends, and that's the first thing that we have. We have the Rule Zero discussion. What decks are going to play well together? Not necessarily for the sake of the show, but so we're not shuffling up cards after 20 minutes of play, but also so we're not having 2-hour games, right?
Right.
So like that to take into account too. And I think the reliance for Magic players to police themselves is a whole own conversation. Because there's been many a times, and hey, it happens for one reason or another, where we sit down and we say, my deck is a power level 8 to 10. My deck is pretty mid. And we sit down and we shuffle up after 20 minutes because somebody forgot to mention, hey, I have this infinite combo in the deck. Or you also have to take into account social interactions of people, where somebody just might not be comfortable to say, hey, I think that my deck's power level is X, but it's actually Y. And then you find out during the game. And, you could always just say, that will generate different types of awkward social interactions between the players at the table. If you say that you had a level 6 deck and you just comboed me on turn 4 with Thassa's Oracle, which is another conversation we need to have, just from my perspective, you could just get up from the table and not play with these players anymore, right? Or that player, or draw, there's some animosity, 2 people stay, 2 people leave, so on and so forth. That's just bound to happen. Magic players police themselves in this way. So I don't know that I would agree with the cards necessarily being banned because Magic players can't adequately do Rule 0.
Yeah.
For their other reasoning, I totally get it. Right?
Yeah, their other reasoning does make sense. To some degree, there's also so remember, so for a lot of people, they're just like, why bans and Commander anyway if there's Rule 0? The thing is that they are charged with protecting the health of this format, and one of those things is to encourage diversity. And so some of the things that they're doing are trying to make sure that not every deck looks the same, and that because optimizing a deck does mean if you put a mana crypt in, it's a better deck, like usually. Not always, but like usually. So they are trying to make sure that the decks have a lot of, diversity and stuff. And you can see that with the Golos ban. Every deck should have just run Golos as its commander. That was kind of the thing it to do.
Right.
Any deck goes better with Golos as its commander for the most part. Not every deck, but like most of. So to protect the health of the format, they banned Golos. To protect the health of the format, they've had other cards that are banned because they were just misused horribly.
Yeah, I remember living under the Flash Hulk era, and I was like, "Why is this something legal?"
Yeah, Paradigm Engine.
And then they banned Protean Hulk.
Prophet of Crufix.
And then they brought it back, and then they ended up banning Flash, and I'm like, these cards should never come back. Like we would just say like FNM or something playing Commander, and here I am dying to Flash Hulk on turn 3.
So I do think that Commander should have bans, and a lot of the time, so we do have. I witnessed a tweet, and I thought it was a really good point. Some of the people were getting very upset over these bans, including a CAG member. They pointed out that CAG member also got very upset at the Golos ban, and it seemed like that meant that they didn't really understand, EDH, casual EDH as a format. I don't want to start any wars here, so I'm not going to name these things, even though they're public statements. I just think that it's important to note that some of the people who got very upset may not have been doing so for with an understanding of what preserving the health of the format looks like. So I think that's really important, but I also think it's really important to address the point, again, we mentioned this already, that there was a lack of telegraphing of the ban of Crypt and Lotus, right? That we'd heard Dockside, we kind of expected Nadu, but we had never heard any conversation about Crypt and Lotus, not once, not from the RC, not from the CAG, etc. And so this was a blindsiding ban. This was a ban that nobody expected to happen, and the shock value increased the anger, I think. So Dark Pact Cosplay, who has wonderful opinions on various things, said, I've been seeing a lot of conversations about the lack of telegraphing the ban of Crypt and Lotus from the RC. I tend to agree with that criticism, but I'm wondering if there's actually any solid reasoning for keeping the decision under wraps until announcement. And so that's actually a really interesting point here. I did want to cover so the RC, their statement of stuff. Why didn't you give notice of this change was one of their sections of the link that we gave you. We'll own this one. This could have been done much better, is their response. Our policy about advance notice has been, for many years, to avoid muddying the waters with advanced warnings about what we're planning to ban. We used to have a watch list, but it, A, caused noticeable grief when things weren't acted upon. So when they were considering it, but it never happened, people were like, well, I sold all my shit and you're not banning it, and blah, blah, blah.
What's going on? Yeah.
Right? B, slowed down our ability to react when we saw a problem, right? So if you have a watch list for a while, you can't ban something right away if it's really causing huge problems. C, shifted the losses to the less enfranchised players who were less aware. So if you don't know there's a rules committee for Commander, you don't know to look at their watch list, and so you buy into stuff that you're not even aware is going to go away. So they got rid of that watch list. So the second thing, on top of that, many recent bannings have come primarily from community feedback. Hull Breacher, Flash, Paradox Engine were all cards the community told us were a problem. So there was public awareness in advance. This wasn't the case with Golos, and there was some objection to the surprise, but it is borne out as a good ban. Lastly, discussing potential impending bans with more people increases the chance of leaks, which make the losses even more unfair. Our goal with keeping it secret, especially in the case of expensive cards, was to avoid any possibility for advanced trading based on leaks. In the case of the September 2024 bans, though the financial impact of this change justified more discussion or community aware. Sorry, they phrased this weirdly. Okay. They agree that the September 2024 bans, because they were a huge financial impact, they justified more community discussion and awareness. Keeping details secret to avoid leaks was important, but discussing the concept openly would have been worth it, they think.
Yeah.
Just for the financial impact.
And I totally understand that part of it, right? Because from the LGS perspective, what if they put this out there? Either way, the LGSs are going to suffer.
Yes.
Right? They're going to lose value no matter what happens. If it's on a watch list ahead of time, if there's discussion that it might be banned or not, there will be some sort of financial impact. And still the same feel bad from players who had just bought those things. Right? Because now they can't resell it.
To some degree, though, I think that with really valuable cards, like they said here, some advance notice means that they can mitigate that loss. They can price the cards a little lower. They're not going to buy so many more, right?
Yep.
To stock on shelves. Like there's a little bit of stuff they can do to mitigate it. So they say, will you give advance notice of changes in the future? We'll be discussing the concept of, quote, warming up community awareness before bans like this in the future, right? Casual players will get more taken advantage of, they say, more likely get taken advantage of. So it's not clear it would be a strict improvement. They're trying to thread a needle here. And I can understand very well exactly how difficult it is to navigate these waters. There's so much to take into account here. They want to protect the health of the format so badly. They're here for you. They're here for your format. They're trying to make it the best format it can be. Some of the actions that they're taking are really complicated with complex interactions and implications. And so it's just, it's rough because they do talk about, like, did WotC know these cards might be banned when they sold them in 2023, right? And they said we discussed our concerns with them, right? But we hadn't decided to ban them until recently. It's a painful change and maybe waited too long, they said. We maybe waited too long, but once we decide to ban cards, we act and have never sat on a banning. They also claim never to have sold cards that they know are going to be banned themselves to avoid loss of value. They don't believe that they will roll back these changes. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was they have to not care about whether the card is expensive when they ban it. They have to not care about that. Their priority has to be the health of the format. So CEDH, right? Like we said, Lua and Comedian are looking into a rules committee for that, which would be a different rules committee because it really is a different format. When you look at the bans in standard versus modern, it's very different, right?
Yeah, they just have different
and so
needs.
I think that's a really reasonable, tack to take. Why wasn't the CAG told about the bans or consulted? Here's where we get to the part where we're talking about, right? The Dark Pact's comment of, like, wondering if there's any solid reasoning for keeping the decision under wraps until announcement. Obviously, we talked about a list. Why didn't you announce it again? But why wasn't the CAG told? The CAG has been involved in numerous conversations about format speed over the past few years and have shared their opinions with us. They were not informed of the choice to ban these cards because we felt we had the information we needed from them and elsewhere. And as a large group, it would be difficult to keep it under wraps. As above, we felt making sure there were no leaks was paramount. Because again, you don't want people taking advantage of other people. They didn't say because of, again, I said that. Sorry. I should make clear where the quote ends. So it's really interesting to see this, and then they give the information about exactly why they banned each individual cards of the individual cards. So if you go into that link, you'll get you'll get that and more as to answers to what's going on with these bans, etc. So I think it's just it's important to understand the community's anger and being upset and the loss to the LGSs, what pressures were on the RC, how little of a role CAG played beyond informing the RC that these were problematic cards, a lot of them, but not advocating for a ban. They didn't know. And understanding the impact on the artists, understanding the impact on the players, understanding the relationship with Rule Zero, and understanding the relationship with CEDH. So I think that while I like what these will do to the gameplay in Casual Commander, I do really support CEDH finding its own rules committee and making its own bans based on what best for that format, because that format is completely different.
It's completely different.
It's so different, and it's amazing, and it's another diverse way, like rich way to enjoy Magic. And so I believe it should have its own rules committee. I also think that one of the most important things to take from this is the people on the CAG and the rules committee are in charge of keeping your format healthy and good. And they have had to contend with a huge problem, which is WotC right now. WotC's role in all of this has been the least focused on aspect of this issue that I have seen online. On social media, I gave you all these posts. I gave you 2, I think, that dealt with WotC's role in this. And then obviously the link to the rules committee's comment on "We told WotC about fast mana." So it's really important that your anger, if it's directed outward, and you're discussing this, it should not be targeting at specific people. If you would like to talk about WotC as a company, you talk about WotC as a company. You don't talk about the people, the actual employees there.
Exactly.
Because some of them will be responsible for that decision, some of them will not. And even if they are responsible for that decision, you can be constructive and respectful when discussing it. But I do think it's really important to understand that targeting people who have a tough job to do and who really aren't responsible for printing these cards is yeah, very wrong.
What are you talking about? I've been on the internet and I've learned that Mark Rosewater does absolutely everything for Wizards of the Coast and is responsible for all of those things. So that's, according to many things I see on the internet, it would definitely imply that. But
anyway. And even when they are the person who makes that decision, sometimes the pressures on them are things you aren't unaware of, right? So again, it's Hasbro to some degree that we have to look at as well, that's pushing the releases of these so quickly because it's trying to milk Wizards for all it's worth, because Hasbro's losing a lot of money in other areas. I think its only profitable one is Wizards of the Coast, which produces both Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, and both of those properties are making money, but none of Hasbro's other stuff is. So they're pushing out stuff as fast as they possibly can.
Which, that stat blows my mind when you think about the fact that Hasbro owns Monopoly, My Little Pony, and Transformers. Like, why? We don't have Michael Bay making the Magic movie, although I don't want that. Like, I don't even mean to put that in the universe. But I'm just saying, that's a thing. Like, that is under Hasbro's, umbrella, and that is not as profitable as, our silly little wizard card hobby, which, I love that. It's amazing.
Exactly. So like it's crazy. And I just want people to think a little before they attack.
Yeah.
I think discussions are great. I think but I think this is a really complicated issue. And I think there's more behind it than just okay, I'm really angry that they banned my card. I lost some money. And I'm going to make their lives miserable.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and whenever anything gets banned, people always just say Rule 0, and they're like, well, but you could have just Ruled 0 these out of your tables. And I don't know about you guys, but in general, like, I know what decks these are appropriate and what decks they aren't, and I don't have any decks where they would be appropriate, because I just don't like playing at that speed and that power level, so I don't. And it's funny, though, because trying to comment on Commander in general, one thing I've noticed over the years is that whenever I put any kind of Commander take out there, someone is bound to respond, even if it's the only person who responds, saying, but in CEDH, and then something. Right. It's like,
it's very hard.
Like it feels like a completely different format, like genuinely a completely different format, to the point where the community talks about it differently as though it's a separate format. I don't understand why it's not a separate format.
The other thing you have to keep in mind is that you're never going to please 100% of the people all the time.
Very true.
It's just the way it works, and that's why it's great though. Magic is so diverse that you have so 100%. Many people who appreciate different aspects of the game, different power levels, different cards, different things that it should be for everyone. And when something is banned, you're going to have pushback. But the question is understanding when is trying to have a little bit of that pushback impulse restrained. Hesitate before you do this attacking. Like, think about it first. And understand where it's coming from. So anyway.
Well, and that's why Magic has so many
thoughts on this.
That's why Magic has so many formats, though, is because we're trying to meet everybody wherever they are. You know, we're trying to make sure that everybody can have a good time however they want to play. And I think that's amazing.
And it's really good for that.
I always tell people it's the number one thing anytime, you know, and you all know this because you get people that sometimes come into your chat and do this on Twitch or whatever, right? Where they're yucking somebody else's yum just because they don't like it, right? Like, we see it all the time, like, at least I see it all the time with people who hate, like, the formats like Alchemy and stuff like that on Arena. It's always just Alchemy haters. And, like, listen, if somebody likes to play the format, don't yuck their yum. It's fine if you don't, but somebody else likes to. It's a lot harder with Commander because there's so many different combinations of cards that you can play, and somebody is going to get offended by something if you say something about card that they're playing, right? I mean, that's me 100% with Thassa's Oracle, and I'm not sorry for that. But that's just my own preference. Listen, there's been many tables.
You can have your opinion and you can voice it respectfully. That's fine.
Yeah.
You just can't poop all over everything.
Correct. Yeah. And so
then things are going to be covered in poop, and nobody likes that.
Nobody likes that.
Unhygienic.
It's not a good time. Not a good time at all.
Which is why general polite society and
And I don't know if this Commander discussion is coming to an end, but do you know that the new Secret Lair comes out this week?
Does it?
Yeah.
I mean,
does it have any instances that are in fact sorceries suddenly?
No,
and can't be played?
There is a misprinted Coma, right?
Oh no.
Coma is the serpent from Kaldheim, right? Coma?
Yeah, Coma. Yeah.
Coma Cosmos Serpent, yeah.
Yes, it's misprinted on the card.
Oh no.
Yes, I promise you. I love the poster arts, by the way. But let's see if you can catch it.
Yeah,
that's a gorgeous piece of artwork. Why did they misprinted it? What the hell?
So I'm noticing first off that it just has another title on it. So for the audio folks out there, it's a almost like a pastel-y horror poster. It's supposed to look like a B-movie poster that you would see, hanging at your local cinema. So the and it has horrors from across the plains with a little 50 cent, mark, and it's sorry, not a movie poster. It's meant to be like a magazine, a 50 cent magazine that one would see on a newsstand.
A comic from like Swamp Thing.
Yeah. So Coma, Cosmos Serpent, legendary creature, serpent. Spell can't be countered. Beginning of your upkeep. Beginning of your upkeep. It's the beginning of each upkeep.
Each upkeep, yeah. So they nerfed Coma unintentionally.
They nerfed Coma. Because this misprint I think is far more sinister or far more problematic, I should say. Sinister implies
so
intent.
Bad because if you don't know the original card,
right,
then this one literally, this does mechanically change the way
you can figure out that is an instant. You cannot play it otherwise.
Yeah, there's no way.
But this is a complete. That's so bad.
Yeah, kudos to Wizards for giving us a very stylistic frame that actually has legible text in it, unlike some of those Lord of the Rings ones. That's nice, but it's a step in the right direction. But make the text correct,
how hard is that? You have so few cards in these secret lairs, and they're already printed. You just copy the text over.
Well, the fact that right now this whole thing started with almost like a bit. It's like, oh, did they misprint something? Well, actually, yeah.
Oh Lord.
This
Carlo,
like,
you're
it's-
amazing.
Oh.
Oh God, I'm hurting now. I'm hurting. Hold
Oh,
me.
this is
Mm.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I love the poster arts.
Yeah, the art's well, and here's the art on all of these.
Like I want to play this
are
card, but I refuse
breathtaking.
to with that error.
Right. Yeah.
Because people are gonna argue with me, and I'm gonna have to like look up every game.
You're
They're gonna be
gonna
like,
have
"That's
to-
not what it
mhm.
says." I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, but
Judge.
on the card, here's my phone.
Yeah, it's like here,
look
here's
up the card."
Scryfall. Yeah, exactly. On the you're gonna have the Oracle text open at all times,
But
or
maybe
you're
it
gonna have to
hasn't been
put it in a
printed yet, the
sleeve.
layer,
Like,
and you can have them fix it. Have people
Yeah.
mentioned this enough yet?
yeah. I mean, and if it's
Well,
your
they couldn't fix
commander, would you just
circular
put the
logic
normal
in
one?
time.
And- yeah, it's
So they probably can't
Everybody
fix
pointed
this.
it out once they showed it too. I was like, oh no.
Oh, God.
Yep.
Oh, Carlo, this sucks. I love Coma, and I wanted to build it in a deck, but ugh.
Yeah.
Yep.
The original art's spectacular too, but like that's
Totally. Yeah.
really cool, and I really would like to run that in a deck, but I refuse with that error.
Mhm.
They're just pumping it out too fast.
Exactly. They're just pumping it out
This
too
is
fast.
so bad,
The quality control is really rough. Which is
and it's gonna hurt the game as a whole.
It is. Well, you talk about eroding trust. I mean, if I can't trust that the card does what it says,
Yes.
oof. Like
Like
that's
the professor meme. Reading the card does not always explain the card.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The card don't do what it says it do.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
So yeah, quality control issues, power creep. Well, and on that issue of kind of some of the errors or some of the issues, one of the first examples of this notion of like really injecting chase cards into products just to sell products that they know aren't going to move without it. Well, I mean, we have full art lands and unsets. That's a classic example. But the other one that also comes to my mind is Arcane Signet. You know, Arcane Signet has now just become a staple because it's so excellent.
Yeah.
It is like the best in class 2-mana rock that every commander can use. When this
Except
first
for
came
colorless
out,
commanders.
well, true, colorless commander. Yeah,
then
that's
you
fair.
have
So
the Thought
Eldrazi players
Vessel.
out there, but
Thought
True,
Vessel
yes.
is the other one for that.
yeah, and that's fine. And yeah, but Arcane Signet was when it first came out was like a $30-$40 card at some
Yeah.
points.
In
Because-
Throne of Eldraine's
Brawl decks.
Brawl decks. It
Yeah.
wasn't in booster packs, and
No, it was
Throne
in
of
Brawl
Eldraine
and
introduced
Throne
the
of
collector
Eldraine.
booster, if I'm not mistaken, and
I
I don't
think
believe it was in those.
$15 at the time, 15 to 20.
Was it?
And
I
then they
think I saw it
reprinted it, and now it's like 50 cents.
Yeah, they've
Oh.
reprinted it a whole bunch, which they have to because this is one of those cards where almost every deck can run it alongside Soul
Yes.
Ring. And so they've just gotten to a point where it's just in every single precon, and they just put it into every single commander-based set as like an uncommon or even a common, and just jettison
But
it out
I do
into
want
the
to point
universe.
out, actually, I think this one's really, really important. One of the things that's interesting is I actually don't use this in my green ramp decks because it's just better to have a land.
Yeah.
Yes, I do the same.
It's
In
just
decks that have
better
access to green,
to
I
have a
generally don't run
land.
rocks like this. Yeah.
Because again, people destroy artifacts, they don't destroy lands usually. And so again, the green ramp is one of the exceptions to this. And now that the other two, so again, just tying that
Yeah.
back in. Sorry, you're saying this is a staple. It's not in green ramp decks. Any deck with green and that does any ramping, which
Mhm.
most green decks do, you just want the ramp for lands. You don't want the ramp for artifacts.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So, okay, so maybe it's not as common as something like a Soul Ring, but it can still go into most. This is compatible
Of
and
course.
optimal for most decks out there. I feel very confident saying
especially
that.
multicolor,
Yeah.
like 3-color or more. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, and it was designed that way. This card was
And anything long
mechanically built to be a shoe-in for most commander decks. That is
Yes.
clearly why they made it. And they marketed it in brawl decks, which
Yes.
who plays paper brawl to this day? Like, I don't think, I mean, like that format famously
Not
had
very
somebody
many.
win a championship because they were the only one who queued for it. Like, that's literally something that happened with that format. That's how unpopular that is.
I didn't
And
know
they
that. That's
sold-
wonderful.
And they were trying to. I wish I knew that person's name so I could get the proper citation.
Yeah.
But and they literally were selling a pre-con decks for a format that nobody wanted, nobody cared about. But they added this in there because they knew it was going to be good for Commander just to move the boxes. And now the entire format is, irrevocably changed. And this is now a part of the landscape because they did that. In the case of Arcane Signet, it's good. Like, this is nowhere near the power level of some of the other ones we're talking about. Like, this is not Jeweled Lotus. It really isn't. But
it's not Mana Crypt either.
No, not at all. But at the same time, it's here now. It's part of the discussion. It's part of the format, and there's nothing we can do about it because it's just, the cat's out of the bag, toothpaste is out of the tube. It is what it is. As Wizards is pushing the envelope and pumping these out, they're making these huge ripples in the format. Which, and to be fair, I mean, they're changing the format every time they release a new set. That's their job. And for the most part, it's for the best, I think. Well, I'm still playing it. I'm still invested in it. Like, it is still great. It is. And we want to keep it. We want to make sure it continues to be great moving forward. And things like this, if you push that envelope too hard, if you turn the dials in the wrong direction, things get bad. They can get bad really fast. And it's all in to move a product so that their quarterly earnings look good. So
that, I think, was before the Hasbro merger, but yeah.
Oh no, Hasbro's been in charge of Wizards of the Coast for a long time. So
longer than it's a Throne? Really? Wow.
Oh yeah. No, okay. If I'm not mistaken, Hasbro has actually owned Wizards of the Coast now for like over 10 years. I don't know exactly when that happened, but they've started to kind of, I don't know the inner office politics or anything, but it feels almost like they're relying more on Wizards in the last 5 or 6 years than they have in the past.
Yeah.
Because we're hearing more about it now than we did before. So I think maybe some of the higher ups realized, well, and also Chris Cox came from Wizards to become Hasbro CEO. So that probably was a factor. But anyway, I don't know enough about those politics and the structure of that company to speak to that with any authority. So I don't know what the deal is, but I know the perception has been that Hasbro has had a heavier hand recently. And whether that's true or not, or whether it's the higher ups within Wizards who are pushing this insane demand for profits, I don't know exactly where it's all coming from. Hasbro's an easy scapegoat because they're the man. We can very easily point to that and be like, well, they're clearly doing it. It's easy to vilify the people at the top of the, top of the corporate food chain. And there may be some validity to that. I genuinely don't know, but yeah, anyway. But yeah, so Arcane Signet was just one that I think is interesting because this is like the mini, I mean, this is the Lotus Petal to the Jeweled Lotus, Black Lotus. Like this is a little ripple that is fine as compared to the big thing that was the problem. Cause like Jeweled Lotus was just this at Mythic. To sell Commander Legends and then Commander Masters. So, hooray. Anyway. So, are there any other... So, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, it is getting late. We've been at this for like an hour and a half. Were there any thoughts that you guys wanted to make sure we covered before we headed out? Because I know we've covered a lot, but the funny thing is, I'm sure there's still more. So...
I'm sure there is. I'm sure people are tired of us.
Is there anything else we wanted to dive into? Fun fact, we record these in the evening, and I'm generally a morning person, so I start to flag near the end if you haven't noticed, dear viewer.
Yeah.
Dear viewer, dear listener. So I'll own that. It is what it is. So, yeah, was there anything else that you guys wanted to touch on before we round it out?
Maybe just that if you want to play Commander with us, we're going to MagicCon Las Vegas at the end of October. And we would love to play Commander with you.
Heck yes.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, so make sure you find us for games.
Absolutely. And fun fact, me and Carlo actually have a designated meet and greet. We're going to be in the creator area on Sunday at noon. Yeah. And we're going to be hanging out and handing out, token stickers, all that happy jazz. And hopefully
be sure to stop by.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's good to, and also
They're
just
very
hang out
friendly.
in the creator.
I can assure you, you will not regret having said hi.
Aw. And honestly, I found in going to these conventions, just hang out in the creator area. Like the creators are just like the coolest, like most loving people, and I'm not just saying that because like I'm like one of them or something. I don't know. It's just always the vibes there are just immaculate. So yeah. Anyway,
always come say hi.
Yeah,
come over for a game.
All right. Well, so we have Vegas coming up in about a month. Was there anything else that you guys want to plug before we head on out? Definitely your own channels at the very least. So
oh my god, how could I forget? I'm gonna be at SCG Con this weekend coming up in
hey, let's go.
DC, but it's Chantilly, Virginia. That it's where they're having the Pioneer Regional Championship. I'm gonna try to play some LCQs on Friday. But other than that, they got standard tournaments for big cards, so maybe I'm gonna come home with more Galtas. Who knows? Yeah.
Good luck. Yeah.
That'll be awesome.
Very cool. And Hidology, anything on the horizons you want to let the people know about?
I'm going to Vegas. It's going to be fun. I'm trying to put together a bunch of commander decks and then sell a bunch of cards when I'm there so that I can get funds for a new kitten for Haldir.
Oh,
Aww, amazing.
He wants a baby friend. He needs somebody to play with more often than I'm available. We do play every day, but still.
Yeah.
Yes.
He needs a baby kitten, and then I'm gonna be making sure that I document that kitten's baby life with Haldir. It'll be fun. And then they can chew on some magic cards together. It'll be good.
Wonderful.
So
make sure that only like the low value
it's gonna be a good
ones
time
are
at Vegas.
reach, so yeah. So you don't, be sure to toss in the mana crypts and whatnot. You know, that's anyway. Sorry. Anyway, too soon.
I'm gonna hang on to them. I mean, I think
know
it's possible that the CEDH may have them a whole new ban list. I think it's worth holding on to these cards, in my
100%.
opinion. If you are just looking for investment advice, I have no investment advice. I'm not an investor. However, I myself am like, from personal experience, I am going to hold on to those cards. I do support and believe that there will be a whole new rules committee for CEDH. It is proven to be a different format that may make the cards spike a little bit again. I don't believe you should sell low like now. I think you should just hang on to them. Unless you really need the money, of course, like just go for it. Like,
do what you gotta
there's
do,
still
sure.
a large that's still a $50 card, you know, at the minimum. For the jeweled and the mana crypt. So the dock sides I think are a little too low to go for that. But so yeah, just hold on to those for now. I'll be selling like other stuffs. It'll be fun.
Rock on. Very cool. Awesome. And I'll be in Vegas as well.
Sell your Nadus. Nadu, no one cares about Nadu.
Nadu is the value on Nadu is so funny.
See if you can get 25 cents for it.
Yeah, exactly. See if you can trade it for
that. I don't think anyone will pay you for them these days because they can't be running anything. So literally, like, maybe you can use it as kindling.
Right. Well, I found it so funny. Like, I opened the Showcase Nadu out of a pack. And like this was even before the modern ban came down, and I remember thinking like, oh, this is the hotness in modern right now, or at least it's one of the most powerful decks in modern. I'm sure I could sell this for a little bit because I don't want to hang on to it, and I know it's going to get banned. So like, if I can offload it for a couple bucks, sweet. And the market value even then was like $1.50 because everyone knew it was going to get banned. They're like, I'm not holding the bag on that. Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, so I thought that was hilarious. I don't think I've ever seen a deck be so dominant in a format and be worth less. Like it was just it was nuts. Anyway, but yeah. So fun fact: all three of us.
What is Snuff Out doing right now? Sorry, I'm not confused. Curious. What is Snuff Out doing? Because that was a response to Nadu. Is it still pricey?
Looks like it might be.
Haven't they reprinted that card a bunch?
Was it Snuff Out? Was that the one, or was it something else? It was from Cold Snap.
Oh,
whatever that one was.
The card from Modern is
no, it's something else.
Spike.
Yeah.
Oh, was it Soul Spike or
Soul Spike? Yeah, that's
Soul Spike. This thing, yeah. Soul Spike was in the Necro Dominance decks. I don't know that it was well, it gets
like $25.
Yeah,
it's still expensive. Okay, good to know.
It was also one of the win cons of the Necro Dominance deck, so it wasn't strictly to deal with. Yeah, it wasn't strictly to deal with Nadu. Although
what's the one that like does? Yeah, it does 4 damage to something. Yeah, and that took care of Nadu as well. It was also a protective spell, but like yeah. Hi, Haldir.
Yeah, free cards that you could cast in a mono black deck are all pretty hot right now. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
All right, so it didn't hit it that hard.
Yeah. No, that one's still doing fine.
It was still probably useful for other things.
I'm actually curious. Now, this is apropos of nothing that we talked about in the meat of the episode, but it's Soul Spike. I'm curious how long it's going to take before this gets reprinted. Like, I would be shocked if there isn't an upcoming set that has this at least as a special guest.
Secret Lair.
Oh, I'm sure that
Put it in a Secret Lair.
Wasn't it? I feel like something was maybe it was Snuff Out that I'm thinking about, and it was just reprinted, but in a Secret Lair, but
yeah. Anyway,
it's another black free spell, I think. I'm not certain. Let me go look it up.
Snuff Out was, I think, in a couple of Universes Beyond. So.
Oh
yeah,
no,
there was a secret layer.
Yeah, it was a
Snuff
secret
Out.
layer. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. The Beholder
Yeah,
Death
because
Ray.
it's $8,
nice.
and that's after just a new secret layer printing, and it was also reprinted in
I
Doctor
literally
Who.
have it in front of me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Hey, sweet.
Oh, you have it. Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh,
But yeah,
fantastic.
so anyway, sorry. I was just interested. Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of a
right.
tangent, but that's just fine. No, it's that whole thing is interesting. But yeah, fun fact, everybody, all three of us are actually streamers. We stream over on Twitch, and our links are in the description right now. So if you wouldn't mind dropping a follow over there, but only, of course, after you follow, like, subscribe, leave a 5-star review in your podcast app of choice. However you found us, please engage. It helps a ton. We would appreciate it. And if you want more of us on all the various platforms, yeah, those links are down below alongside the FAQ, and I'll go ahead and also link the official announcement as well. If you want to read through, that, do a little bit of homework on what was going on, those will be available for you. So yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Everybody. Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. Always a pleasure.
Cheers.
Later, everybody.
Later.
Go, Carlo.